Assalamu alaikum and welcome back once again to Today in African History with Baba Shaka. I'm Baba Shaka and today is March 31st, 2021. It is also the last day of Women's History Month 2021. This past month, we had an opportunity to look at and learn about a number of women who have made their mark on and contributed to our history. But we must keep in mind that what we have learned over the past month has only amounted to a very small scratch on the surface of African history. We cannot and must not wait for a particular month to learn about a history. We must endeavor to learn about and from our history continuously because the fact is, if we don't know who we are, we will forever be struggling to become someone else. So, with that in mind, let's close out this Women's History Month with a look at a woman that some call Mama Africa. Miriam Makeba was born on March 4th in 1932, Johannesburg, during a time of economic depression. Her mother, a domestic worker, was imprisoned for 6 months for illegally brewing beer to help make ends meet, and Miriam went to prison with her as she was just 18 days old. She grew up in Nels Pruitt, where her father was a clerk with Shell Oil. Miss Makeba's mother was also a Sangoma, or a practitioner of herbal medicines, divination, and counseling in traditional Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, and Swazi societies of southern Africa. Her father unfortunately died when she was just 5 years old, and Miriam was sent to live with her grandmother at the compound in Riverside, Pretoria. From a young age, Miss Makeba loved to sing at church and performed her first solo during the 1947 royal visit. Miriam began her working life helping her mother clean houses. In the 1950s, she lived in Sophiatown, which was a vibrant place and one of the few areas where all races could mix. It was the scene of Kwela music, Marabi and African jazz, and big band music, which became popular. Mary Makeba began her music career singing for her cousin's band, the Cuban Brothers, but it was only when she began to sing for the Manhattan Brothers in 1954 that she began to build a reputation. She toured South Africa, Zimbabwe, which at that time was known as Rhodesia, and the Congo with the band until 1957. After this, Miss Makeba sang for an all-women's group, the Skylarks, which combined jazz and traditional African melodies. Miss Makeba's appearance in the films Come Back Africa in 1957 and as the female lead in Todd Matshakiza's King Kong in 1959 cemented her reputation in the music industry, both locally and abroad. She later married her King Kong co-star Hugh Masekela in 1964. Miss Makeba arrived in New York in November 1959 after resigning herself to exile after South Africa refused to renew her passport. King Kong was about a boxer who kills a sweetheart and later dies in prison. The musical, publicized as a jazz opera, was a big success in South Africa. To avoid the apartheid laws that divided the public, the musical was often performed at universities. For her small part in Comeback Africa as a Shabin singer, singing the titles Lakutson Ilanga and Saduva, Miss Makeba was flown to the Venice Film Festival in 1959 so that she could personally receive an award for the movie. The film was a documentary on South Africa made by an American film director, Lionel Togosin. Miss Makeba was soon in trouble with the South African authorities who had received negative attention through the presentation of the film. Therefore, Miss Makeba decided not to return to South Africa from where she got little or nothing in terms of payment for her performances. The South African government then revoked her passport and denied her the possibility of returning to South Africa. She was the first black musician to leave South Africa on account of apartheid, and over the years, many others would follow her. Miss Makeba took up refuge in London after the Venice Film Festival, where she met Harry Belafonte, who helped her to emigrate to the USA. In the early 1960s, she shot to fame in the USA overnight and performed for former US President John F. Kennedy at Madison Square Garden in 1962. Among her other admirers were Marlon Brando, Betty Davis, Nina Simone, and jazz legend Miles Davis. Miss Makeba said of people imitating her look, quote, I see all the black women imitating my style, which is no style at all, but just letting our hair be itself. They call it the Afro look, unquote. In 1960, when she tried to return to South Africa for her mother's funeral, she discovered that her passport had been revoked. In 1963, she testified about apartheid at the United Nations, and her South African citizenship was taken away from her. She lived in the US thereafter, and her records were banned in South Africa. In 1966, she won a Grammy Award for An Evening with Harry Belafonte, which was recorded in 1965. She was also the first black woman to have a top 10 worldwide hit with Pata Pata in 1967. In total, she recorded 4 albums in the US. And it was in the United States that she also recorded her famous click song. Go check it out, the click song. I can't pronounce the Xhosa word, but just the click song, you get to hear it. In 1968, she married one of my favorites, militant African civil rights activist and Black Panther leader, Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture. But harassment from the U.S. government forced them to move to Guinea in West Africa. They later separated in 1978. Now, after moving to Guinea, Miss Makeba managed to find work outside the USA. She toured Europe, South America, and Africa in the 1970s and the 1980s. During these years, she performed mostly in trade union halls, cultural institutions, and on small stages. She also appeared at jazz festivals like the Montreux in Berlin. And it was during this period that Miss Makeba addressed the United Nations General Assembly twice, speaking out against apartheid as a Guinean delegate to the United Nations. In 1986, she was awarded the Dag Hammarskjöld's Peace Prize from the Diplomatic Academy for Peace. According to her biography, the 1980s were a difficult time for Miss Makeba as she separated from Kwame Ture, and her daughter Bungie died in tragic circumstances. She also battled with alcohol abuse and cervical cancer during this period. In 1987, she joined American folk singer Paul Simon's highly successful Graceland tour to newly independent Zimbabwe. The concert featured multicultural songs and drew attention to racist policies still prevalent in South Africa, despite the fact that it technically violated the cultural boycott of South Africa. After Graceland, Miriam was in great demand and went on to perform for heads of state and even the Pope. In 1990, African National Congress or ANC leader Nelson Mandela was freed from 27 years in prison and encouraged Miriam Makeba to return to South Africa. She then returned after 31 years in exile and became a goodwill ambassador for South Africa to the United Nations. After her return to South Africa, Miss Makeba struggled to find collaborators, but 6 years later, she produced the album Homecoming. In 1997, she embarked on a farewell tour and appeared in the movie Mama by Veronique Pate-Dumbe. In 1998, she toured Africa, the United States, and Europe to sold-out theaters. In 2002, Miss Makeba starred in Lee Hirsch's opulent and exciting documentary Amandla about the powerful part of music in the struggle against apartheid. Miss Makeba has received honorary doctorates from both local and international academic institutions. The city of Berkeley proclaimed the 16th of June to be Mary Makeba Day, and she has received the highest decoration from Tunisia. In 1999, Nelson Mandela presented her with the Presidential Award. In 2005, Miss Makeba announced her retirement from the mainstream music industry, but she continued to make appearances and to do smaller performances. Throughout her career, Miss Makeba insisted that her music was not consciously political. In an interview with the British Times, she said, and I quote, "I'm not a political singer. I don't know what the word means. People think I consciously decided to tell the world what was happening in South Africa. No, I was singing about my life. And in South Africa, we always sang about what was happening to us, especially the things that hurt us." Unquote. Miss Makeba continued her humanitarian work through her Zenzele Miriam Makeba Foundation, including the Miriam Makeba Rehabilitation Center for Abused Girls. She also supported campaigns against drug abuse and for HIV/AIDS awareness. Furthermore, She appeared as President Mbeki's goodwill ambassador to the UN. Miss Makeba died in 2008 at the age of 76 after having a heart attack after a 30-minute performance at a concert for Roberto Saviano near the southern Italian town of Caserta. Quote, I kept my culture. I kept the music of my roots. Through my music, I became this voice and image of Africa and the people without even realizing it. Unquote. This was a quote by Miriam Makeba written in her biography in 2004. Now, this concludes our Women's History Month series. I strongly encourage you all to dig into your history, our history, and the women who have contributed to this great and fascinating story. A massive shout out of appreciation to all of you who have subscribed to this channel. Your continued support is invaluable. To those of you who have not yet subscribed, we invite you to hit that subscribe button down below and add your much needed support that will assist us in bringing you these daily lessons. Please like and leave a comment